A Long Island waterfront property is an incredible lifestyle investment, but approaching the purchase or sale of one like a typical suburban home is a direct path to a blown deal. Look at this April 2026 data for the Long Island housing market. We see a tight inventory marked at just a 3.8-month supply, sitting right next to rising median prices, $852,000 in Nassau County and nearly $715,000 in Suffolk. That combination creates an incredibly competitive environment. When buyers and sellers feel pressure to move fast, they are highly tempted to rush through the very specific, specialized diligence these properties demand. To actually survive this market and close the deal, you have to trade the speed of a standard transaction for rigorous, upfront preparation. We call the space between lifestyle marketing and structural reality the transaction gap. In a typical mainland deal, you rely on a standard home inspection, a routine title search, and an off-the-shelf homeowner's insurance policy. This table shows waterfront reality versus standard deals. Instead of basic inspections, you need marine engineering, NYSDEC permits, and elevation certificates. These are highly regulated assets. Overlapping local, state, and federal rules dictate everything from dock layout to utility placement. Whether you are the one selling the home or the one making the offer, bridging this gap requires specialized documentation to ensure the transaction survives the closing table. For sellers, getting ahead of this means building a documentation-ready file before the property ever hits the market. You have to eliminate buyer anxiety right out of the gate. That means gathering your current surveys, any existing elevation certificates, and the mitigation details for your coastal utilities. This flowchart traces the pathway to prove shoreline structures are legal. It starts with NYSDEC or local town permits through to a final certificate of occupancy. Clearing them requires navigating multiple jurisdictions: town, village, NYSDEC, and Suffolk County's Health Department for septic compliance. The trade-off here is straightforward. Proactively pulling these files and fixing compliance issues requires weeks of upfront bureaucratic effort and potentially paying for immediate repairs. But doing that work is the only reliable way to justify a premium listing price and to protect yourself from severe price negotiations or buyers walking away entirely during the diligence period. For buyers, the biggest financial blind spot is almost always flood insurance. Standard homeowners insurance generally does not cover flood damage, and relying on the assumption that a home outside a mapped high-risk zone is cheap to insure or safe from flooding is dangerous. In fact, nearly a third of federal flood claims come from moderate and low-risk areas. This graphic shows how FEMA's Risk Rating 2.0 evaluates properties today without relying on broad map zones. Pricing is determined by unique metrics feeding into the property, like the exact distance to water, flood frequency, specific elevation, and the cost to rebuild. Demand an address-specific quote early because FEMA enforces a 30-day waiting period for new policies. Uncovering that specific premium early might erase the illusion of cheap holding costs, but it prevents a catastrophic financial surprise from derailing your financing right before closing. Beyond the insurance costs, the physical integrity of the shoreline itself requires a completely different level of scrutiny. A standard home inspector is simply not qualified to evaluate a bulkhead or a seawall. You need a specialized marine engineer because these structures face harsh realities. They are constantly battered by tidal forces, powerful storms, and corrosive saltwater. These specialists are looking for hidden red flags that signal rapid deterioration: tow scour beneath the waterline and failing metal tiebacks, soil loss behind the wall, and severe salt air corrosion on the metal fasteners holding it all together. As you evaluate the structural health, cross-reference it with the property's legal standing using a waterfront diligence scorecard. You need to hit all three marks: insurance readiness, structural health, and a clear legal and permit status. Never assume a dock is legal because it's always been there. Retroactive permitting issues with NYSDEC or Army Corps can stall a sale. Bringing in specialized marine inspectors and legal reviewers costs more money up front, and it will slow down your initial offer momentum. However, those upfront delays and out-of-pocket costs are the only shield protecting you from inheriting an illegal footprint or buying into a six-figure bulkhead replacement project on day one. Long Island waterfront real estate offers a spectacular lifestyle, but the transaction process is deeply unforgiving of generic marketing or lazy preparation. This chart plots upfront effort against peace of mind. Operate in the top right quadrant, fully documented and marine inspected. Sellers list only after clearing permits. Buyers verify marine inspections, risk rating 2.0 data, and refuse on permitted work. To secure a waterfront investment without the surprises, both sides have to commit to the specific diligence, verify every permit, and respect the physical reality of the water.